Welcome, everyone, to our Raising Eagles session today on recognizing depression and suicide prevention. My name is Ashley Croson. I'm Director of Community Services here in Allen ISD. With us on the panel is Christy Alexander. She is our Family and Community Engagement Liaison. And then we also have Megan Budensky. I'm really hoping I pronounced that right. She'll correct me here in a minute if I'm wrong. And she works for Grant Halliburton Foundation. And I'm, really interested in the information that she's going to present us today. And I hope that it's really helpful to all of us on the panel. All of you attending today. This presentation will include an in-depth discussion about adolescents' depression and suicide prevention, along with positive coping skills to build mental wellness. And so I am going to let Megan take it away from here because she has all the information to share with us today. So thank you, Megan, for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Allen ISD, for having me. I'm so excited to just be able to reach a bigger audience that we're virtual and to talk about a topic that is so important, obviously a more difficult topic, but very, very important. And I hope you're able to get a lot out of this. There will be an opportunity for questions. So if you have anything, please don't hesitate to ask. But just to keep with everyone's schedule, we'll just get started. So what we do at the Grant Halliburton Foundation is we obviously talk about difficult topics like depression and suicide prevention, but we are also trying to focus on the whole person and talking about mental wellness and how we can put some really great things in place to prevent those more serious things from occurring. So this, like I said, is a very difficult topic, and some people, it will be more sensitive to others. Obviously, we are going to be talking about depression and suicide. This is a safe space. Like I said, I encourage questions if you have them, knowing that, if this is a hard topic for you, feel free to take a break or log off. We are recording, so if you need to, put this down, and then you can always come back to it to watch the recording as well. So every couple of years, the state of youth mental health, along with other surveys about different topics related to the youth, are put out. The different things that the CDC recognizes as things that shape the mental health of young people have a wide range. So as you can see, it doesn't just kind of come from one specific place. It comes from who that person is as an individual, the different beliefs about themselves, the different skills that they possess. It comes from their family and their caregivers, right? The way that they feel stable in their household, the way that they are shaped about who they are and what kind of beliefs and traditions and all of those things that come from their family, their community, the relationship with their teachers, their coaches, maybe a faith-based community or other kinds of community supports. Within that, their neighborhood and their wider range community of where they are living, if they are facing things like natural disasters or that increased risk of those things happening more often, climate change, housing, etc. And then overall society, so different kinds of inequalities, discrimination, different government policies really do shape that mental health state of young people. So this is the most recent survey we have. This does also come from the CDC. This is a survey based on high school students. So kids who are between the grades of 9th grade and 12th grade are the ones that we have this data on. As you can see, it is on my left, the persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness in the past year. That is broken down by male, female, race and ethnicity, and then sexual and gender identity. And you can see how that plays out. And then attempted suicides, again, broken down by sex, race and ethnicity, and then sexual and gender identity, and how those numbers broke down from the kids who just felt that persistent feeling of sadness and hopelessness to then those who actually did attempt suicide. So I'll pause while you kind of look that over. There's a lot of information here to take in. But this is from the most recent year, which is 2023. This is also from 2023. So about 4 in 10 high school students, it did experience that persistent feeling of sadness or hopelessness. We'll talk about why hopelessness is something that we really want to steer clear from later on. 2 in 10 seriously considered attempting, and then almost 1 in 10 students did attempt a suicide. Female and LGBTQ plus students were more likely than their peers to have those feelings of sadness or hopelessness. And with that, their poor mental health and suicidal ideation. Hispanic students experience decreases in those measures, of poor mental health and suicidal thoughts. And then the percentage of female students went down as well, decrease, as well as Black students who attempted suicide or were injured in a suicide attempt decrease. Again, this is based on the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which if you are interested in, you can just look that up, Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Not only does it talk about mental health, it talks about a lot of other things that are affecting our youth if you would like to see those data trends. So we're going to jump right in and understanding depression, talking about what depression is. I'm sure we all have some sort of thoughts or connotation with that word depression and what we think that might look like. What I do want you to understand is I'm going to be giving you what the most common symptoms, the most common risks, etc., of involving depression, but it really can look different in a lot of people. So just taking that with a grain of salt of these are what we most commonly see, but it doesn't always have to look this way. So depression is a treatable medical condition. That's something that we really want to emphasize, is that it is treatable. It is not something that needs to live within someone for the rest of their lives if they are diagnosed or they have feelings of depression. But it does involve their body, their mood, and their thoughts. And it affects the way a person eats, sleeps, and feels about themselves, as well as the way that they view the world around them. So really, and what we tell kids as well when we're giving this presentation, that someone who is depressed, it really factors everything that is going on in their lives. Everything about them is affected by their depression. So someone with depression just has a really hard time with everything that we might take for granted as being something that's an easy task. So based on the DSM-5, this is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. This is like the gold standard of mental health disorders and how to define those things. They categorize major depressive disorder with these following symptoms. So depressed or irritable mood. Again, like we typically think of someone who has depression as someone who is just, showing sadness, but it also can be very irritable when they're getting frustrated about a lot of different things or a lot of different people and really just seem like they're in a bad mood a lot of the time. Anhedonia, which is a loss of interest or pleasure in almost all activities that you used to like. So if a child has been an avid gymnast and everything that they have done has been centered around gymnastics, that's all their goals and their dreams and everything gymnastics. And then kind of all of a sudden they don't want anything to do with gymnastics. Not that anything happened, just loss of interest within that. You might see some physical symptoms pertaining to weight and appetite. So they might eat a lot more or they might eat a lot less than normal. And then they might gain a lot more weight or lose a lot of weight than normal, usually in a shorter span of time. They might have different sleep disturbances. They might have insomnia where they have a hard time falling asleep, staying asleep, just kind of getting their mind to turn off so that they can get the adequate number of hours of sleep. Or they might have hypersomnia where they're sleeping a lot more than usual. They're maybe coming home from school and taking naps at almost every day, or they're going to bed really, really early and they're still waking up and feeling like they could sleep, for 5 more hours, or they're sleeping in more than usual on the weekends. They also have might have some psychomotor changes. This is the way that they are, able to just use their bodies. You might see some changes within that. Again, with the energy, this could be related to sleep or not. They could be really tired, just overall feeling mentally drained, physically drained, feeling of worthlessness or hopelessness, feeling like, there might not be a way out of this situation, that their life has no purpose, or they don't have any goals, or that they are just really worthy of these depressive thoughts. And this is how their life is going to go no matter what. There's no way out. There's no help. Some people experience a difficulty concentrating, not just, in school, but maybe concentrating on conversations with friends, maybe watching their favorite TV shows. They're having a hard time focusing on those things, or even just making decisions. They're wavering back and forth. They're really not sure of themselves or feel confident in their decision making, and really are struggling to do so. And then they also obviously would have different thoughts of death or suicidal thoughts. Those are all symptoms of depression. Like I said, these aren't exhaustive. There are other ones that we might not see that's more common. But these are the ones that we see over, a bigger span of people who are diagnosed. When I'm talking to students or parents or anyone, we try to kind of take away the fear. Sometimes we get into these moods, or we have a bad week or a bad, couple situations that are piling up, and we're going through a difficult time where some of these symptoms might apply. And with that, we want to recognize when it's just a phase or a bad, moment in our time, or when it's something a little bit more serious. So we have come up with this rule that is the 3-2-1 rule. This stands for having 3 or more of these symptoms for 2 weeks or longer, all at one time. And again, that doesn't mean that we're diagnosing ourselves with depression because maybe that 3-2-1 rule applies to us. It just means that maybe this is a little bit more serious, and we do need to get some help professionally, or talk to someone about what we're going through, what our child might be going through, to really make sure that they're getting the adequate and appropriate care. So again, that rule is 3 or more of these symptoms for 2 weeks or longer, all at one time. It doesn't mean that we are diagnosing them with depression. It just means that we have now reached a space where this is of concern, and we should get them the appropriate care and help so that they don't get to the point of being diagnosed with depression and going further than that. We want to make sure that we're catching these things early and putting some really good things in place to try to keep our kids safe. So like I said, depression can look very different in a lot of different people. The type of depression that I just spoke about was major depressive disorder, but there are different types of depression, and they can be brought on by different things. For example, seasonal affective disorder. A lot of people experience these depressive symptoms when the seasons change, primarily going into winter months. When it's cold outside, it's getting dark earlier in the day. Maybe they're going to school when it's dark and they're coming home when it's dark, and they don't have a lot of sunlight. They might get some of these symptoms that are induced by a different illness or medication, and then substance misuse or abuse. Sometimes these things happen as well. So there is a big umbrella of depression, and it can look different depending on which one is pertaining to that individual person. So when we talk about depression, it's really important to just talk about the brain and what the brain does. So Whether you know or not, you don't start off with a fully mature brain. As we get older, our brain develops over time, and the functions of our brains develop over time as well. So with the brain, one of the very first things to be fully developed is the amygdala. The amygdala is our threat detection center. It is telling us what to do in a quick moment to keep us safe. It is in the short term an emotional processing center and aggression. So when I talk about the brain and I talk about the amygdala specifically, I like to talk about how this area of the brain is very mature by the time a person is of the age of about 5. So this is how a kindergartner, first grader really handles their problems, really problem solves using their amygdala, their quick responses, just making sure that they're getting what they want in that moment. The amygdala is also comes into play when you're driving down the street and someone slams on their brakes in front of you. Your amygdala is the thing that is reacting just to keep you safe in very quick sense. Also, an early part of the brain that is developed is the hippocampus. This is in charge of learning, memory, and rules of reward. So not just learning like our alphabet or our math facts, but learning things like, when the stove is red, that means it's on and it's hot, and I probably shouldn't touch that, and if I did touch that, I'm going to store that as a memory of, okay, I learned that I shouldn't touch the stove when it's hot because it will burn my hand. Another part is the thalamus. This is in charge of the sensory processing and emotion. So feeling things with our senses and then the emotions that are evoked from that. So if I touch the stove, I would feel that and it would hurt and I would want to cry or scream, or however my reaction would come from that center as well. The hypothalamus starts to develop later on in later teenage years. That is in charge of hormones, sleep control, mood balancing, again, hormone balancing, like I said, and then hunger and thirst cues. And then finally, the very last thing that is supposed to develop at the very late stages of adulthood, of early adulthood, I should say, is the prefrontal cortex. So this is in charge of our focus, our higher level thinking. Maybe that's in relation to how we are, going to make decisions based on how it will affect other people, how it will contribute to our goals, how it will, get us in the right direction of what we want our lives to look like. That is a very, very thoughtful area of the brain. So when someone is fully developed, a female should be 25 years old when their brain is done developing, and then a male should be 27. So that's the part of the brain. And then I kind of want you to take a mental picture of this in your head and kind of remember where all of those things in the brain line up. And then I'm going to show you a picture from a different angle of the brain. So before the brain was kind of tilted on its side, when I show kids this, I ask them to hold up their right fist and kind of hold it up like this. So you're just going to turn it forward so that you can see from the top of the brain. So as you can see, this is an fMRI image of 2 different people's brains. They are adults, so their brains are fully developed. They're not immature brains. But as you can see that they are very different from appearance. So on the left side is the depressed brain, and the right side is the not depressed brain. Those colors are showing activity. So as you can see, a lot of the depressed brain is really turned off. That person is not able to use their brain to their full capacity. Those sections of the brain don't have very much activity. For instance, if you can see my mouse, this is the prefrontal cortex. This is where that thoughtful thinking is happening or should be happening. And that area of the brain, for the most part, is pretty turned off. This is around where the amygdala is. So you can see this particular person, this is not always the case, but this particular person has a lot of activity in their amygdala. So they're making very quick decisions, Maybe sometimes they're acting very rash. Maybe their aggression isn't very balanced and they're kind of lashing out more often than someone over here who is not depressed, who has a lot of activity going on in all parts of their brain. So like I said, this is not always the case. This is not what every depressed brain looks like. It's just in this particular person, this is how the depression is impacting their brain in particular. So again, just kind of lining those things back up, as you can see where the areas of their brains was turned off and where it was very active. In this case, this person's amygdala was really firing off. Okay. So with the symptoms, it's also important to know the risk factors for depression. When I'm talking to kids, I describe this as, everything in life that we do has some sort of risk, right? If you are a cigarette smoker or a smoker of any kind, the risk for developing lung cancer or any kind of cancer related goes up. If you choose not to wear a seatbelt in the car, your risk for getting seriously injured in a car accident goes up, which means that it's not a guarantee, but these are things to note that if they are pertaining to that person, it's really important to know that I have an increased risk for developing depression. So I should just be that much more careful when I'm trying to evaluate myself or evaluate my family members with different things that are going on with them. So if someone has been affected by some sort of traumatic event, this can be very particular to that person. These are just examples: death of a loved one, some sort of violence, abuse, or neglect. It could be anything that is traumatic for that person. It does not need to fit this certain bill of these are the only things that could be traumatic that would affect their risk for depression. Any sort of long-term stressful event, so if that person is experiencing very stressful situations for over a long period of time, that stress will eventually get to them and is something to note. It could be things like bullying, academic problems, maybe things that haven't been addressed at school, different struggles, or different things that are going on at home and with family. Sometimes the brain and just the person's genetics or family history have a play into their risk for depression, just the way that their brain is made up. Also, the different chemicals that go into their brain, if they are lacking some of those chemicals like serotonin or dopamine, if those things are not balanced or if they're really unbalanced for a long period of time, that is also a risk. Any other pre-existing mental health disorders, primarily if they haven't been addressed appropriately. So anxiety, ADHD, things like that can also have a play into depression, especially if they haven't been addressed appropriately. Being in an unsupported environment for any sexual orientation or gender identity, and then alcohol or drug use is a known risk for developing depression as well. So again, these things aren't a guarantee. It's just something that we like to really make sure that people understand so that they can be even more prepared. So why is it important to treat depression? I know that we talked about in the beginning is that depression is treatable. People have a way out. They have resources available to them so that they can feel better. People do not need to be stuck in this depressive state. They have the opportunity to live normal lives following depression. What we'll get to is that depression can lead to other problems, primarily suicidal thoughts, which we will get to. And like I said, it is treatable. There are many different options. A lot of people just say, oh, I don't want to take medication. And that's not the only route. So there are many different options to treat their depression if they so choose. Okay, so we are going to start talking about how depression treatment can lead to suicide prevention, how also we can just talk about different facts surrounding suicide and different ways to act if suicide is something that is a thought, or if it's a fear that we are dealing with someone who is thinking this way. So suicide is a leading cause of death in many different age groups, but it is a huge cause of death in our youth age group. It is a huge concern. It is not something that is just for adults that, we are concerned about, but also obviously our youth is getting up there in causes of death. So these are the suicide rates for the ages 15 to 24. As you can see on the bottom, it is from 2013 to 2022. So this is per 100,000 individuals. As you can see, our major age group that is increasing is 85 and older. And then we have people who are less than 15. It's just staying very close to the bottom, which is great. We obviously want all of these numbers to be at 0, but that's great that that one is our area that is dipped a little bit, which is great in this most recent study, is our 15 to 24, which is great. But as you can see, it's still pretty high up there. And if you are curious about any of these graphics that I'm showing you with this data or statistics, I do put where I found this so that if you would like to go research further, I 100% encourage you to do so. Okay, so this just kind of puts it a little bit into perspective. Those numbers sometimes are really hard to understand, especially just being on a graph like that. But just to kind of break it down even further, so for every one suicide death, the experts say there are about 4 hospitalizations for suicide attempts, about 8 emergency department visits related to suicide, about 27 self-reported suicide attempts, and then about 275 people who have seriously considered suicide. So as you can see, there's a really big discrepancy from when we're actually seeing people being treated in a hospital setting to people who are thinking about it. So as you can see, that there are a lot more people who are thinking about it, who are seriously considering it, than people who have attempted, which is great, but there is a big number of people, who are thinking about it that we don't see and we are not treating. Recently, the language around suicide has changed. This is really just to give a lot of empathy and compassion to the people who are affected by this topic. So instead of saying committed suicide, it is now just saying suicide. Completed or successful suicide is died by suicide. So someone died by suicide. And then a failed attempt is a suicide attempt. It's okay if you hear the outdated language. It's still something that a lot of people don't know about. It's just something that we would like to continuously educate people on, just to provide, again, like that empathy and compassion to those being affected. So why would someone consider suicide? So, if you're looking at this and you've never had these thoughts, which I hope you haven't, sometimes it is hard to think about why someone might go there. A big piece of that is that if someone is experiencing this pain called psych ache, it's an internal emotional pain. It's very painful for someone who is experiencing that, and they want that pain to end. They don't know how to end it any other way. They might feel like there's no way out or there's no solution to ending that pain other than to take their own life. As I showed you before, their brain function and their brain capabilities are inhibited. So they are maybe unable to make good decisions. Maybe their behavior control isn't there. Their brains aren't functioning the way that someone who is not depressed, in the way that they are able to make good decisions and control themselves and to maybe take the right action steps in order to getting help. And then about 90% of people who do consider suicide have some sort of mental health condition, whether it is being addressed or not, or being appropriately addressed or not. So some different warning signs that we like to point out. These are all very important, but at the very end of this slide and the next two, I have a one that is bolded for our major red flags. So when we see those things, those are real good indicators that something is wrong and that help needs to be given to this person. This is a cry for help. This is something that we really need to pay attention to. These are slides that we show to students as well. So you're really seeing a lot of what we show kids when we do these presentations. The only things that they really don't see are a lot of the statistics, just because they don't find interest in that mostly, but this is something that we do show them. So for mood, worsening depression, that could be that the same symptoms are getting worse. Maybe they are losing interest in a lot of things, not just their favorite hobby or sport. Maybe they are developing different or newer depressive symptoms that we weren't seeing before. Maybe now they're having sleep issues. Maybe now their weight or their hunger or their appetite is being affected where we weren't seeing that before. Anxiety. So if they didn't have anxiety before, maybe now they're starting to worry a lot about a lot of different things. They're having a hard time controlling their worries. They are really experiencing a lot of anxiousness and anxiety. Or if they've already had those symptoms, maybe those things are getting worse. Again, with that loss of interest, it could come from just a sport or a hobby. Maybe now it's in school. Maybe now it's thinking about their future. Maybe it's now wanting to isolate themselves from other people. It could be that they are experiencing a lot of rage or irritability. They're getting mad a lot more often. They are, kind of just lashing out at other people, or just maybe that's just like their normal state now is just to be very irritable and frustrated. Again, they might have some impulsivity issues. They might not be able to kind of control their actions. They're acting, without really thinking, which I know is a teenager problem in itself, but in a way that's harmful maybe to themselves or to other people. And then again, feeling hopeless. That is our major red flag here. So this one is if we are dealing with someone who really feels like there's no way out, there's no point, there's no reason to try to get help. This is just the way that my life's going to go and it just doesn't matter anymore. That's a really big red flag. I will say that a symptom that isn't as seen as often, I'm going to go back to worsening depression, is sometimes we might see someone get better all of a sudden. They might act like everything is now perfect, everything's fine, whereas maybe a few days ago it wasn't. So kind of like, we want people to get better, but that's more of a gradual, healthier way to get better, is to continuously work on it. If they all of a sudden decide that I'm good now, I'm happy, everything's fine, life is great, that also could be a warning sign, because maybe they've figured out that, their life is about to end and none of these problems really matter anymore. Okay, so some warning signs related to their behavior. They might have an increased use of drugs or alcohol. This could be seen as kind of like a Band-Aid solution for them, a way for them to kind of get out of their own heads, a way for them to escape all their troubles and things that they're always thinking about, to give themselves a little bit of reprieve from that. They might turn to those substances to help them in the short term. They might act recklessly. They might make, like I said, bad decisions, putting themselves in harm's way. They might try to harm other people. Usually when people hear me say this, they might think that, maybe they're driving at a 95 miles per hour in a school zone. And that obviously is reckless, but it also could be more specific to that person. Someone who is a straight A student who has worked really hard at making sure that their grades are great and they're setting themselves up for their future. If they start failing about a lot of classes, if they stop turning in their homework or caring about studying for their tests, that might be reckless to that person. So it doesn't have to be something that's like a general statement for, what we might think when we hear the word reckless. It could be just really what that person used to do and used to care about and not so much anymore. Again, they might withdraw from activities. They might not want to do that sport. They might not want to go to school. They might not want to participate in their church group or their or maybe in their normal everyday activities that they once liked to do. And with that, they might choose to isolate themselves from their friends and family. Sometimes, obviously, it's okay that, some kids sometimes want to be alone. They want to, not have to talk and answer to a bunch of different people. They might need some alone time. But when they're always choosing to be alone, when they're always choosing to not, go to family gatherings with the holidays coming up, not wanting to go to their high school graduation, they're not wanting to participate in the things that they normally would, that's an area that we want to look out for. A lot of people experience a change in hygiene. Again, like we talked about in the very beginning, that a lot of the steps that a person who is depressed needs to take is really difficult. So when I'm talking to kids, I say, think about all the steps it took for you to get to school today. You had to be woken up in some capacity. You had to figure out what you're going to wear. You had to brush your teeth, brush your hair, get all your things ready in your backpack or whatever. A lot of those things seem very daunting to someone who is depressed, and hygiene sometimes is the first thing to go. Maybe they don't even have the energy to find a new outfit, so they just throw on what they were wearing yesterday or stay in their pajamas, right? They just might have some of those easy things go in order to maybe keep up with the rest of the things that they have to do in their lives. Sometimes they might visit or call people to say goodbye. More recently, with the use of technology and social media, the visiting or calling has kind of turned into a post on social media, a story that says goodbye to their friends and family. Maybe like a Snapchat or something like that, where they're, sending out a message that's saying goodbye, not so much on the phone talking to someone or going to their house, but just kind of putting it out there that they are leaving and they're saying goodbye to a big group of people. Some people might give away prized possessions. They might, give away things that once really mattered to them, maybe an heirloom that has been passed down from a grandparent. It could be, in our case, with Grant Halliburton, who the foundation is named after. He was an incredible artist and created many pieces of artwork. He began giving away a lot of pieces of his own art to his friends and family. And his parents didn't recognize that as a suicide warning. They just thought that he was being really generous and just giving away his art, when really he was giving it away because he had a different plan in mind. And then with that, making a plan. So if they are searching online or in any capacity for any different materials, methods, or means to end their life, if they're talking about it, if you see that on their phones, if they're, just kind of looking out for those things of how I'm going to do this is our major red flag here. And then finally, language. So things that you'll hear them talk about, or on their phones, if they're texting it or whatever, things that they are talking about doing. They might talk about being a burden to other people. They might talk about how they don't want their pain and what they're going to affect someone else. They don't want someone else to worry about them. They don't want someone else to always be thinking about them. Kind of like a guilt feeling of, I'm dealing with this, but I don't want them to deal with it. I'm dealing with this, but I don't want my parents to worry about me or my grandparents to worry about me. They might talk about feeling trapped or having no hope, that they really don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't really see how they're going to get themselves out of this situation. Maybe they felt this way for so long that this is just their normal and they don't really know how to emerge from this feeling. Again, with having that emotional pain, that psych ache, that they just can't take it anymore. It's too much for them to handle, and they need to get rid of that pain in some way. They might talk about wishing to go to sleep and not wake up. Some people might talk about wishing that they were never born to begin with, having no reason to live. They don't have any goals. They don't have any life purpose. They don't see their value in their own lives and who they are and what they bring to their communities and their families. And then finally, our major red flag is killing themselves, talking about killing themselves, or wanting to die. When we do talk about this with students, we do kind of touch on how, that phrase might be said in a joking manner. Oh, I'm so embarrassed, I want to die. Or, I might as well, just kill myself. I'm not ever gonna be this, that, or the other thing. And sometimes those things are said as a joke, but we always try to encourage them to dig a little bit deeper, right? It's great if it ends up being a joke. Obviously, we don't want people to joke about that, but that would be the best case scenario, is that they are completely kidding. But we do want them to make sure that those things aren't going unnoticed. And if we are hearing our friends say that, or we are hearing people around us say that, we're asking them further. Hey, is something going on? Or, do you really mean that? Because I take that seriously. That means something to me. Even if you don't mean that to be serious, I'm going to take that seriously, and I want to make sure that you're okay. So with that, again, our 3 major warning signs, all of these things are important. All of the warning signs for mood, behavior, and speech, the things that we're talking about, all of those things are important. But these are the things that if we hear of these things, or we know about something, or we're suspecting this, we really want to make sure that we're acting on it. We're talking to someone who can help. We're making sure that this isn't staying a secret, and we're taking this very seriously. Okay. So at the Grant Halliburton Foundation, we have come up with this acronym called Take It Seriously, or TAG. Stands for T, take it seriously, A, ask questions, G, get help. So when we do talk about students, we give them a tag card, usually we bring with them. You can find these on our website as well, but this is how we get them to know what to do when this is concerning. So again, take it seriously, ask questions, get help. So the first one, take it seriously, recognizing those symptoms of depression, remembering those and looking out for those, especially if we're concerned about someone. Knowing those warning signs of suicide with mood, behavior, and concerning language, and taking note of those things, kind of keeping track of those things that, if they are having a tough week, making sure that it's not just a tough week, that maybe this is going on for a longer period of time, and they're kind of saying some concerning things. I really want to make sure that I'm taking that seriously so that I can get them help. We also ask kids, when we're talking about this, to seek help before a crisis. And why we do that is we want to, recognize who we can go to for help before it becomes a crisis. So I always ask them, hey, think of 3 or 5 people that that you can go to no matter what, that will listen to you, they will hear you, and they will make sure that they are taking you seriously and getting you the help that you need. This can be a counselor at school, this can be a baseball coach, this can be a best friend, an aunt, an uncle, whoever, older sibling, anyone that they have in their lives that they can go to for help. Then asking questions. So when having conversations with someone, it might be hard for them to really know what to say. They might get a little afraid of how to approach someone when they're concerned about them. So different questions to ask, open-ended questions. It seems like a lot of things have been bringing you down. Do you want to talk about what's going on? You haven't been acting like yourself. How are you feeling? I'm concerned about you. I've noticed X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me what's going on? And I always say to them, sometimes this just happens where they don't want to talk to you in that moment. Maybe they're just really busy, or they're not ready to talk. And I always say, if you tried having that conversation and it was unsuccessful, do not give up. Try again. Go back to them in a day. Go back to them later that day. Go back to them the next day and say, really, I am concerned about you, and I really do want to help you. Please tell me how, I can be there for you, or just even to hear you vent. It was once said, and it's been proven as a myth, that if you talk about suicide to someone that you're concerned about, that you're maybe putting that idea in their heads, and this has been debunked. So if you are concerned about someone, you do think that they are considering suicide, it is okay to ask them that. It might take some of that pressure off them. It might take a burden off of them, that they're not really hiding the secret anymore. You're really asking them, something that they might already have been thinking about to begin with. So, are you thinking about suicide? Have you ever thought about hurting yourself or wanting to die? And these don't have to be said verbatim. These are just ways to get the conversation started. And like I said, just talking about it openly is the first step to getting someone help. This is so important to have these tough conversations. When we're having this conversation, it's really important just to listen. No interruption, no judgment, no looks of shock or anger or surprise, right? Just being kind of a neutral face, just hearing what they have to say so that they know that it's safe to talk to you and they're not going to get judged for it. They're not going to, be interrupted while they're trying to get all these hard things out. They're just getting that really neutral person that they can talk to about it. When they're done talking about it, reminding them you're not alone. Depression can be treated. We can figure out solutions for you. I can help you. I can be there all along the way for you. But it is important to get help, and there are ways that we can help you. We also really want to emphasize to students, but to everyone as well, that we don't keep secrets about suicide. A lot of the time, we'll hear that someone did confide in their best friend about their suicidal ideation, but they said, don't tell anyone about it. I don't want anyone to know. Please keep this between us. And that's a really hard thing to hear. You don't want to lose the trust of the person that confided in you. But it's really important to tell them that, I won't tell the whole world about what you told me. But if I keep this secret, I'm just keeping you in danger, right? I need to tell someone that can help you. I'm not telling people to gossip about you or to make you feel judged or insecure about how you're feeling. I'm only telling someone so that you can get the help that you need. So, if you are having this conversation with someone and they are not thinking about suicide, but they are going through something, they are going through a difficult time, encouraging them to talk about it openly, encouraging them to express their feelings, validate their feelings, that their feelings are okay, no matter how they're feeling, it's okay to have those feelings. To continue to check in, like I said, they might not want to talk about it at that moment, or even if they do, it's really important to not just leave that person hanging, right? We had that conversation, they confided in me. It's important for me to continuously go back and check in on them on their mental health. And then encouraging them to practice basic self-care, trying to get the number of hours of sleep per their age group, about 7 to 10 hours of sleep per night, depending on how old they are. Encouraging them to eat healthy, encouraging them to get outside or just to get their bodies moving in order to release some of those good chemicals, right? In order to make sure that they are trying their best to take care of themselves physically so that we can help them with their mental health as well. Both are very much equally important. If professional help is needed, there's a couple different ways on how you can go about finding that. You can start with their regular doctor who they see for checkups, asking them for some resources. The school counselor or the district resources for trying to get mental health help is a great place to start as well. If you do know of any kind of psychologist, therapist, counselor, or even psychiatrist, people who can prescribe medicine, any of those things are going to be a great place to look for mental health. If you don't know how to find it, you can go to your insurance provider on their website and find people who are in network. Asking around, people love to talk about who their therapist is if they love them, and they'll be happy to share them with you. Or you can use our resource, which is Here for Texas. So there is a website and a phone number, both listed on there for you. The website is obviously 24 hours. And then our phone, which I'll show you again in a second, our phone line is open from Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And what this does is it's a database of over 1,000 providers. Someone goes in either on the website or they call in and speak to one of our coworkers, give us some sort of criteria, right? Maybe I'm looking for someone who is virtual, who takes Cigna health insurance, who is a female therapist, right? It creates a list and kind of funnels that list down to exactly your criteria in order to help you get to the right person quicker. Because as we all know, sometimes it's really difficult to find the right kind of help. So again, you can insurance provider, asking other people in your community, or you can use Here for Texas. Our website is available and our phone number, both are available in English and Spanish. And they're free to use for anyone in Texas. It says North Texas, but we've helped people in Southern Texas as well. So there you go for that. Okay, if they are thinking about suicide, they can call or text the Suicide or Crisis Lifeline at 988. They do not need to be the person who is dealing with the crisis to be the person that reaches out. For instance, if my best friend in the world is thinking about suicide, I can contact the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline along with the crisis text line on her or his behalf. Both the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 and the crisis text line at 741-741, they are both nationwide programs, which means that they will be available for help, but the wait times could be longer. The volunteer who is assisting that person might not be in Texas, so might not be very familiar with giving resources that are actually close to where that person needs them. So then there is a way that you can contact your local mental health authority that will be a little bit more specific to you and to what you need in your area. So if you would like to screenshot this is, it should cover pretty much the masses of the mental health authority crisis lines in different areas. The North Texas MHA serves Dallas County, Ellis County, Hunt, as you can see, Collin County, Denton County, and then Texoma Community. So these all have a website, a main phone number that has office hours that close eventually, and then also a crisis line that has people answer 24/7. So I'll give you a second if you are wanting to screenshot. Those are the mental health authorities in your area that will be able to assist you probably just a little bit better than those nationwide alternatives. Okay. So if you know of someone who is in immediate danger, you need to call 911 or take them to an emergency room. Again, you do not need to be with that person in order to call 911 on their behalf. If you are able to take them to an emergency room, great. All emergency rooms in the state of Texas are equipped to handle any kind of suicidal emergency or suicidal anything. Emergency room is a great place to start. If you have no idea what else to do, that is a great, great, great step to choose. Do not leave that person alone until help is available, whether you're with them or not physically. If you are on the phone with them, stay on the phone, keep constant contact. If you are with them, obviously don't leave the space that you're in, don't leave the room that they're in. Stay with them as long as you can until you can get professional help. If they have anything that is harmful, try to take it away if it won't hurt you. Nope. And just making sure that we're trying to make sure that they are staying as safe as possible. Okay, so then different types of protective factors, things that we can do as parents, as caregivers, as adults, providing connection, right? That positive social support for our young people, making sure that we're there for them and that we value them and respect them and want to be there for them. Giving them a sense of purpose and responsibility, trying to foster their maturity and their independence, right? Talking about their different goals and achievements and all their different strengths that they can use in order to achieve those goals. Giving them some positive coping skills, again, sleep, nutrition, movement, deep breathing, right? Problem solving skills. All of those things are going to help them to be people that can build up resilience so that they can try to handle all the difficult things that life throws at them. And then maybe even spirituality with connection to faith or different types of any kind of spiritual connection that they might feel fitting to them. So that is all I have. I know that there is a question answer area for you to write questions in if you have any. If you don't, I'm just going to leave this up as I'm answering questions. This is our website and our social media handles. If there's anything that you wish to dive in deeper, those are great avenues for you.
Someone did ask if you could reshare the behavior slide.
Like the warning signs for behavior?
I think that's what they were talking about. Yeah.
Let me go back.
Yes, that one.
Okay. There we go. I see some in the chat. Are there any other questions?
Don't see any at the moment, but we can give them a few minutes.
Okay.
You did such a great job with all of your information that everyone is good to go.
That's great. That's great.
Well, that was some really good information. I know that it's really difficult for all of us to hear sometimes, but thank you so much for taking the time to share all of that with us today. I learned a lot about the brain and the way that it looks from a depressed to a non-depressed brain. That's so interesting how all of that works. But thank you again. And I don't see any more questions. So
okay, great.
We're good to go.
Well, if there are any, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help. But thank you all for being here today. You are all taking great steps just by listening to taking care of your families and your young people. So you are doing an excellent job just by taking in all this information, which is a lot. So thank you so much for giving me that time and space to do that for you. And I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season and rest of your week. And thank you.